Good morning and welcome to Millionaire Brand Creation. I am super excited to have a very special guest on today, literally around the world. This gentleman is one of the heads, if not the head, of EXP South Africa, which I am super excited to have him on. He resides in Cape Town. And Stephen, tell us a little bit about your background and how you help agents, not only in Africa, but around the world, create lead generation systems for their businesses.
So, yeah, Michael, first of all, thank you very much for having me on the show. It is a great privilege and pleasure to be with you. So I am a real estate trainer by profession, have been on and off for the last 20 years. And the way I got into real estate training originally actually was through a relationship with a guy named Brian Buffini. A lot of American estate agents will be familiar with Brian Buffini. Back in the day, he had a company called Providence Systems. And when I met Brian through the ex-chief exec of the company at the time, his name was Tom Gay. Tom had come up to South Africa and he was heading up the Providence Foundation, and they were doing some charitable work in South Africa. I met him through that. And then he said, "Hey, you're a good guy. You're in training." I had a training company before that. He said, "Well, you need to meet Brian Buffini. You guys will get on like a house on fire." I was a young man at the time, and I was like late 20s or 26 or something. I mean, what do you know when you're 26, right? So they flew me out to the States. I spent a bit of time with Brian. I went to a turning point retreat, as it was called back then. And then I spent a few days at his head offices in San Diego. And before I knew it, I had a business in a box with all these like tapes, videotapes that when I put them in the cassette there and I listened to them over and over again, and I rebuilt the curriculum for South Africa, and we built a coaching program here. And it was a phenomenal 6 years running up to 2008. When then there was that global economic crisis and the crash in the real estate industry. So been through one of those and got burnt by it. But the 6 or 7 years that I ran the business, we had a great run. We built the country's biggest real estate training and one-on-one coaching business. We coached hundreds and hundreds of agents on the lead generation system that I learned with Brian, how to work by referral. And as time went by, I started learning a thing or two myself, and we developed some other stuff. And really, to this day, I'm a huge believer in one-on-one coaching. It really unlocks so much of what all the best training in the world, all the best content that we provide in the world. There's something about one-on-one coaching that just unlocks things. So I've got very fond memories of my time running Providence in South Africa. Then the journey kind of moved on, but I'm back in the real estate space now with EXP. It's going very well. We've got a big team that's growing here, and as it turns out, Michael, over the last couple of days, we've been talking very seriously about starting a coaching program within my group, within EXP South Africa more broadly, and perhaps even doing some stuff with Global. So, kind of full circle, and all the little pieces of the puzzle as your life gets put together. They come back around, which is quite satisfying.
Yeah, tell me a little bit about getting into real estate. Tell me about your childhood and growing up in South Africa, and more about what gave you that bug to become an entrepreneur and to become a success that you are today.
Uh, Still working on the success part, Michael.
Humility too. That's
Yeah.
another one.
That's a true story. Look, I actually don't know. I'd like to psychoanalyze myself. I didn't have the happiest childhood. And I think one of the reasons I was very difficult as a teenager, as a young man. When I went to university after school, I was just off the rails, uncontrollable. And I think one of the reasons for that was I had my dad. He's a lovely guy, and I've got a great relationship with him today. We've really mended things, but he just wasn't around. And I don't want to go into the detail there because it'll be dishonoring of him. But it wasn't a great childhood. And I had an older brother, one sibling, and he, I think, was miserable in the heart and took it out on me. So he bullied me a lot when we were kids. He hated me. He was always trying to kind of betray me and hurt me. And so I think this is now my effort at psychoanalyzing myself. I think what it did was it made me very skeptical of authority, particularly male authority.
Mm,
And
mm,
for me, when I left, even at school, I was at a quite a good boys' school in Cape Town, and it was just difficult. I never complied. I was always difficult with the teachers. I was always bucking the system. And that was in me because I just hated authority. I didn't trust it. I will make my own decisions in my own life. And that carried on.
yeah.
And that can be destructive, Michael. That thing can be very destructive because, I mean, as you know, I know a little bit of your story, doing a little bit of homework on you. And sounds like you had an unbelievable relationship with your dad. And I mean, that's a good
Mm,
thing. That's a blessing. Um, I had the reverse, and it actually had very bad consequences in my life, and I was just getting worse and worse, and things were disintegrating, and then I had a kind of major turnaround. But that thing is still in me to this day, where I want to feel like I am the captain of my own ship, and I'm not
mm.
depending on someone else for my future or my freedom or my income. And I don't want to be told what to do. I don't want to have to tick someone's boxes. So I think part of that is probably just natural disposition. That's the way I've been created. But I think part of it is also that thing of not trusting authority. How was that for an answer?
It's a great answer. I look back on my childhood too, and in a lot of ways, even though it was charmed in a lot of ways with high highs and low lows, I had a problem with authority since day one. I don't think I've ever technically worked for someone else. Because when someone tells you to go left, you're like, I just want to go right. I feel it's more exciting and more different. And the most successful people in the world, when you look at history, forge their own path in some way or another, right? The old adage that I heard is many people try to climb the corporate ladder. My mentality has always been, how do I build the elevator and just go right to the top? Why do I want to grind
Yeah.
my ass off for 10 or 15 years trying to get to somewhere, and then you get there and you're not even satisfied because you haven't learned the journey and all the amazing attributes of failure along the way to get you to ultimate success. So I really appreciate you sharing that. So from your childhood, what was it about that disposition that gave you an entrepreneurial mindset, a mindset of, regardless of my circumstance, I want and I'm going to be successful? What was that in you?
Look, I actually don't know. It's so difficult to understand the complexity of yourself, let alone anybody else. But I think from an early age, I always had a sense of self discipline. No
Mm,
one kind of looked after me as a kid in the sense of telling me to do homework or read or whatever. Like I just raised myself. Because of that, I don't know any other way to live. That I'm not depending on anybody else for my success. But there is also a sort of natural affinity to the excitement of an entrepreneurial opportunity. Well, I know you'll relate to that. There's a thrill that a certain type of personality gets from the unknown, the adventure, the uncertainty of an opportunity. It's thrilling. I am a risk taker by nature, so I think there is a sort of nature and nurture kind of come into this. And I've always been that way. The excitement of the unknown is thrilling to me, and it's almost more. You say you didn't want to. Well, why would you work your ass off for 20? For 15 years climbing the corporate ladder? And the truth is, now I'm in the late 40s, and I've been working my ass off for 25 years trying to build my own business. At the end of the day, it was probably harder work.
yep.
But there's a thrill about the journey of being an entrepreneur that, man, like very few things can compare with the excitement of it all, and something about it that I just love.
Speaking of excitement, I know a lot of people are probably struggling right now around the world, and you're, over. I mean, you're literally halfway around the world to me right now at this moment. I mean, I'm in Arizona. I know Glenn has a place here, and we're kind of, Brian and a lot of other EXP strongholders. The question I have is, what are you seeing in your economic environment in South Africa? And how are you seeing troubles in Europe or the United States or positives trickling into your country and into your marketplace?
South Africa is a fascinating economy when you try to compare it to economies overseas, because we've got so many other factors that play
Mm,
into what's happening in our economy. So there's obviously the global impact of what is happening in Europe or in the States, and that does impact us. There's a saying which many countries, I guess, you may have heard it, when 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 America catches cold, or when America sneezes, the rest of the world catches cold. You probably heard that. I mean, that's true. We saw that in 2008. You guys had a banking credit crisis, and I mean, our economy tanked. So we definitely do follow whatever happens with you guys. You do set the trend. But having said that, we've got so many other factors. So I'll give you an example. We've got major corruption problems. I know you probably say to me,
mm.
we do too, but let me tell you, man, we take corruption to another level in my country. It's like, it's not like shave off the top but still keep the country functioning. It's just tear out all you possibly can. It doesn't matter if the thing falls to its knees. And because of that, we've had 25 years since independence, which was a good thing. Apartheid was an evil, unjust system. But unfortunately, the ruling party have not governed the country well, and we're starting to see the infrastructure crack. So we've got load shedding, for example. Now you probably don't even know what that is. That's when the power grid shuts down for sort of 3 or 4 hours a day, and you don't have electricity. So, those of us who've got, we've got access to finances, we can get inverter systems and solar replacement for electricity. But, there are so many businesses that struggle, manufacturing companies or retail companies. If they don't have power, they can't trade. That all affects our economy. That's
Right.
that's irrelevant. What's happening overseas is irrelevant. That affects us. Now, we've been laboring under that already. We were in technical recession, which is whatever, 3/4 of negative growth. We were in that before COVID, and
Oh,
then
wow.
COVID hit us.
Interesting.
It's not good for anyone. Now we've got load shedding. Now there's an international war. There's a war in Ukraine. Now the US are tanking. So, there's just so much going on. The other thing we see, Michael, sorry, long story, but is within South Africa, there are highly desirable parts to live, and there are previously desirable parts that are falling apart. So
Oh,
we
wow.
have a great divide between where I live in Cape Town. It's governed by a different party called the Democratic Alliance. They have maintained the infrastructure. Cape Town is still very first world, it's a beautiful city, and it's well run. Whereas if you go into even cities like Johannesburg, which were the financial capital of South Africa, the potholes in the roads, it's not being
Wow.
maintained. And many of the wealthy families of Johannesburg are moving into Cape Town. So our economy and our property market is being buoyed by what we call semigration, with people
Hmm.
from within South Africa coming into the Cape. Whereas, so we still have a stock problem, an inventory problem with housing, whereas many parts of the rest of the country, the guys have got a glut of stock, but there's no buyers. No one wants to move into these towns and cities where everything's falling apart. So it's a very complex situation, man. Yeah.
How does the banking and economic environment there differ from the United States? For a lot of people watching are probably in the United States and some beyond. The question I have for you is, let's say I'm a home buyer in South Africa and I want to come to you, Stephen, and say, I want you to buy me, a $2 million home in South Africa. But I need to get a mortgage. I need to finance it. How would I go about doing that? What are some of the rates over there currently? And how difficult is it to finance in today's time?
A good question, and I'm not going to try to answer a question that I don't have the answer for, Michael. So to be honest with you, I don't actually work as an estate agent. So these are
Mm,
kind of technical questions that I actually don't have experience of, but I can give you some generalities.
yeah, please
We
do.
have a very robust banking system. We've got one of the top banking systems in the world, in fact. And when South Africans actually travel to America, sometimes we're quite shocked by some of the stuff that you can't do on some of your bank's websites, for example, and you guys still use paper checks. And
Right.
um, you know, so we actually have a very advanced banking system. We also have a highly advanced and regulated land registry system. So it's a very safe environment in which to buy assets. It's a very stable economy when it comes to investing money into the country, purchasing property, banking, etc. I'm sure a foreigner can get finance in South Africa. There may be some hoops to jump through, but that's one of the agents could run them through that. The other thing which I think is important to note is that the exchange rate between US dollars and South African currency, which is rand, R-A-N-D, South African rands, is so favorable to Americans
Mm,
that you could buy a beautiful family home in the area in which I live, which is a very nice suburb within Cape Town, close to private schools, etc. You could buy like a really top home for, think about that, probably about $500,000 US would give you like
wow.
an incredible family home.
Wow.
If you want to buy a 2-bedroom apartment somewhere as an investment, and you could pick that up for 100,000, even less, 80,000 US dollars, and you get a really nice apartment. But whenever foreigners come to South Africa on a holiday, man, they just like, we cannot believe how beautiful this place is. We
Yep.
cannot believe how metropolitan and first world Cape Town as a city is, and we
Yep.
cannot believe how cheap this place is. It's a great
Mm.
place to visit. Yeah.
No, that's fascinating. And what are interest rates currently over there in today's time?
9%.
Well, we're heading there here in the United States, first time since the mid 80s, which is crazy. I mean, to see that shift. I know the Federal Reserve reports at the end of trading today here in a couple of hours about most likely, raising our Fed funds rate another 75 basis points, which is going to take us to crazy levels we haven't seen. But one of the things that's always interesting for me to fathom is what's the ripple effect from the United States into other countries. And the reason I say that is because when I was studying at London School of Economics, my professor told me the exact same quote that you stated, right? When America sneezes, the whole world catches a cold. And having studied and having taught agents how to become successful, what's the best way for agents in South Africa or beyond to pivot and make sure that they are just as important now in the marketplace than ever before when times get tough? What are some of the recommendations you're giving to some of your students?
Yeah, so I mean that's a great question, and I agree with so many of the other commentators who are speaking about this, that there is opportunity in crisis, and if you are one of the agents that knows how to take advantage of it, you're going to do very, very well. There will be agents who have their best 12 months in the next 12 months. I'm convinced of that. And I think part of the secret here is first of all to think like an entrepreneur, to get yourself out of the hole where you're fearful, where you're paralyzed, where you don't see opportunities. Get into that, you know, if you can get yourself out of that place of fear and think to yourself, hang on a second, I'm going to be fine. It's all going to work out. There's actually opportunity here. I think you'd be amazed by the opportunities that you do begin to see. So practically speaking, what do I tell agents to do? You cut your costs, and I don't mean cut your costs in a kind of bunker down sense. I just mean in good times, it's easy to commit to spending. You go through your budget. I don't know when last you did this yourself, but it's so easy to just commit to stuff you don't need. And when you
Mm,
go through your bank statements for the last, say, 6 months, line by line by line, you do a proper budget, you will find a lot of expenses in there that are unnecessary. You're spending too much money on some things. There's maybe stuff you don't need. There may be subscriptions you don't have to have. I mean, all the stuff we rack up when times are good. So either eliminate those expenses or reduce them as much as you can. That is a phenomenally boring and yet highly practical piece of advice that is tremendously helpful for agents preparing and pivoting for a changing market. So that's the first thing. If we get people onto one of our one-on-one coaching programs, that is the first thing we do with them. Do a personal budget, a business budget, and slash expenses to the bone. Come back and tell me how much you've cut. The second thing we get them to do is immediately look at their lead generation. And
mm,
there's all the stuff that we do with agents on lead gen. What state is your database in? Let's talk about your referral system. Let's talk about your communication tools. Let's talk about social media. Let's talk about daily disciplines of phone calls, of pop bars. Let's talk about your disciplines of handwritten notes, some old school, some new school stuff. But that's what we'd focus on is lead gen. And I'll just finish with this, Michael. I'm convinced that the agents who forget about all the fear mongering and the scariness of it all and just anchor down and get some really good daily disciplines on getting in touch with people, looking for good opportunities. I mean, let's face it, people are going to buy and sell homes. There's going to be
Yep.
property transfers happening. Somebody's going to do those deals. Keep your head down, get disciplined with your relationships, get super disciplined with your lead gen activities. I think agents who do that will disproportionately rise higher than the rest of the industry, because as much as we want everyone to be disciplined and positive, let's face it, most people are not going to be. So those who are will just scoop up all the business that is available. I'm convinced of that.
No, I love this. And I want to dig a little deeper. Do you have a morning routine or routine that some of your most successful students abide by, that you could share with the audience?
Yeah, so we actually teach a time blocking schedule, other than your personal kind of routine in the morning. And I think everybody should have some kind of personal routine that they follow in the morning. But disregarding that, once they're in the office and seated at their desk, I reckon 3 hours a day needs to be off, time blocked out of their diary for phone calls. And then there's a number of people that you phone in that. We teach there's 4 groups of people you got to phone through. You got to phone through your hot list. That people are thinking of making a move in the next 90 days, and you should be keeping a hot list of people. Second group of people you phone through is your current clients. You probably do that 1 day a week. Make sure that you're in touch with your current clients. In the current market, property is going to take a little longer to sell. You got to be managing those relationships. I don't know what it's like where you come from, but it's one of the worst mistakes agents make here is after the first couple of weeks, they just go silent. They sort of drop off the scene. So if that's part of your time block session, it won't fall through the cracks. Okay, once a week I phone through my current clients. Then you've got to phone through your what we've always called your advocates. That's your referral database of kind of 100 advocates that you're building relationships with. And then you maybe do some circle cutting or some cold calling. So just get on the phone, be having property conversations with as many people as you can in that time. And there's a couple of other disciplines we look at on handwritten notes and on an email newsletter. So I think once a week you've got to have a newsletter that's going out to your whole database.
I think those are all very good things. I was talking to one of the most successful single agents in our marketplace in Arizona, and I don't know how familiar you are with our marketplace here in the United States, specifically in Arizona. Some of the products that we've sold in the last 5 years are getting up there with the likes of Los Angeles and New York. So this agent in particular does personally about 350 million in sales a year with one agent. And so I sat her down and asked her a few questions, and I wanted to share this with you and the audience to see what your thoughts are. She said the first thing that you need to do is you need to become extremely knowledgeable in your place. Don't niche out, niche down, right? If you want to be in luxury or you want to be in a specific area in Cape Town or what have you, you have to know everything about every property, every price, every square footage, every architectural element, every trading price, every owner that you possibly can. And so what she told me, which I found very interesting, is I would assume you guys have open houses and things of that nature over there, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. She said, go to every open house that you see. If you have 5 minutes out of your day, your job is to go into every possible open house or every listing that you have the ability to do and ask questions, right? Get a mode on the market, talk to the agent, see if people are writing offers, see how hot the market is, because the best way to get a gauge on actual movement is boots on the ground and those in the area actually conducting offers. And in Arizona, where we're living, I probably see 100 houses a week just to not only be a buyer and put my face out there, but more importantly, get a pulse on what's going on in the economy. And I'll tell you here, it's very interesting is interest rates are severely crippling market transactions. And you're getting ghost towns in a lot of these open houses, which is very surprising. And like you said, there are deals getting done, but they are getting done by very smart agents that are able to bridge that gap. And here's the other thing that she talked about, which I found very interesting. She said many agents who are newer and less knowledgeable about the product base are pushing their services onto others. A pester is not an ally, right? And so her dynamic was, I always want to be that ace in the hole. I always want to be that person that has access to some off market deal or some opportunity that no one has access to, and they're my first call. So, how she actually got a lot of her business, I don't know if they're able to do this in South Africa, but in Arizona, you can double end a deal. Are you allowed to do that in Cape Town?
Yeah, in fact, the South African market is quite different in this respect.
Yeah.
Most of the deals done in South Africa, the listing agent will be the buying agent as well. They sell their own
Mm.
stock. We don't have actually buyers agents in South Africa.
That's fascinating. So it's even more pertinent than, in what her model was, but how she's able to bridge these $20 million US deals in Arizona, which is extremely high for our marketplace, and she's double ending them, making meaning, in these deals, she's clearing 700,000, 800,000 US dollars on one transaction, which is mind boggling. Um, she is basically just putting people in a room together and saying, this home is perfect for you, I'd love for you to see it, right? She tells the potential sellers, hey, I have a client that may really love your home. If you're willing to sell it, what are you possibly willing to sell it for? And she just opens up that conversation, right? She opens up that conversation. If she's able to bridge the gap, she's able to conduct a lot of transactions. And her model is not volume based. It's really sticking true to your model, sticking true to your marketplace, being the most knowledgeable in the room, and bridging the gap between buyer and seller at the highest possible level. And I thought, wow, that's very interesting, because most agents, especially in the United States, almost get that bad rap of being used car salesman-y or what have you, and trying to hawk their items on others when they don't want it. How would you comment on that type of business model, and how are you seeing that in your marketplace with some of the most successful agents you have working with you?
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting conversation. There's two things that you raised there that I think are very interesting. And I'd actually like to hear your views on the matter.
Yeah.
The one is your comments from this lady on how you need to be a genuine expert in your area and in your niche. Um, and I think a lot of agents, for some reason, feel they can fake it. They can
Mm,
just fake it. And I think that is what has contributed to the perception of estate agents. Because
mm,
there are a lot of people who don't see this as a profession where expertise is the thing that you bring to a deal. They see
right.
what I bring to the deal is a buyer and a seller that I've picked up off one of the portals on a website, and now I've got to stand there and feel like an expert, want to get the paperwork in my hand. This you're describing a lady there who sees herself as a consultant, as a trusted advisor to everyone in a market. And I have said to agents many times, all these phone calls. I'm not the phone call guy, man. You got to get on the phone. You got to get on the phone. You need to have lots of conversations with people and have property conversations with them. And I'm saying to agents, you have to have something intelligent to say when you phone people, and it has to be property related. So you must have done your homework. You must have some interesting statistic or interesting fact or recent event in the area, something about your niche, or that you can genuinely say when you pick up the phone and you start phoning through people. Hey, I just wanted to let you know there's an X percentage increase from this time last year in our market, which is interesting because we haven't seen that in the last few years. Just some statistic that makes you
Right.
not makes you sound intelligent, that demonstrates that you are intelligent, that demonstrates you do understand what is going on here. And I mean, that lady, the way she described it, the way you described it now, she's just taken that to the next level. And I guess one of the questions I want to ask you is, you've been around, you were in the market young, you made a great success of it, you've seen other agents come and go. What would you say to a relatively new agent? He's like early 20s, mid 20s maybe. And he says, Michael, I want to be that person. I don't want to be the schlick pretend I know it all, but I don't know it all. And how do I get deals? How do I get to be people's agent in the whole? What would your advice to a young agent be?
I always say, when I do something called Coffee is on Me here locally, and instead of taking people out to lunch or to coffee one on one, I like to host that and have a sponsor, buy everyone breakfast. And we do an hour seminar and teach agents step by step how myself or my friends made our money dollar by dollar. And I think that's what it is I think it's really important for agents to understand monetary success, because when a lot of people say you're successful, they're in a lot of ways referring to your income. And in a lot of ways in our industry, a lot of it's numbers based and commission based and all that, what have you. But what I always say is you have to plan your life the way that makes you most happy, right? If you love children, great, have children. If you love marriage, great, be married. If you love being a buyer's agent, great, be a buyer's agent. But everyone's different in that respect. But there's three things that you have to formulate when you're conducting business by the age of 50 in order to be financially successful and free. And I always tell agents the first step is acquire knowledge from more successful people than yourself that are where you want to be, and be in the proximity of the highest level of success that you have access to, and learn how to create income and learn how to create income intelligently. So if someone is doing something unique or different and they're getting paid exorbitant amounts of money, like this lady, for instance, my ears are perking up and I'm taking listen, and I'm going to write that down in my notebook or implement that in my daily interactions. The second thing is, at a young age, you have to take earned income and quickly convert it into passive income at an early age. And the way I was able to do that at an early age and where I found my niche was in the rental markets. So I was able to acquire single family homes every 1 to 2 years, live in it, rent it, buy the next one, live in it, rent it, buy the next one. And I kept doing that throughout my 20s, and now I'm in my early 30s. And that really set me free because I was able to basically, turn, let's say, $300,000 or $400,000 of hard sweat, toil, earned income into several $1,000,000 of assets that I control based on smart movement. So I would say you have to convert as quickly as possible earned income into reoccurring passive income. And last but not least, when you have reoccurring passive income, do not sell the goose that is laying golden eggs. So many people look at a beautiful property, an apartment project, a home, a rental, something that's paying you every single month, and they see 20% appreciation and they want to sell it. The problem with selling it is A, in the United States, you have to pay exorbitant taxes. B, you can do a 1031 exchange, but now you're taking on more risk and creating a different asset portfolio. And C, you're disrupting that income stream that's already part of your bottom line. And so, what I always tell people is when you're acquiring real estate, whether it's your primary home or something different, you should have it in the eyes of, would I like to pass this on to my children? Would I like my children's children to have this home or this project or this opportunity to either live in or create income for them in perpetuity? That's the lens with which I always buy a product. Because if I can say yes, then I don't mind market turns or anything of that nature. And then last but not least, I think once you have that down at any age, the third and the highest level of business acumen is basically you're leveraging your assets, which is money, your knowledge, or your niche interaction, so to speak, to acquire more money. And so, at my level, I'm able to take rental income and now be the bank, right? And lend my own money out to certain people at a higher interest rate and be kind of the mortgage, so to speak, for their game. So really, it's an infinite model. It's an infinite game. I think a lot of people think of business in the short term. There is no time span on business. It's what makes you most happy, gives you the most fulfillment for you and your family's life, gives you the most meaning, and more importantly, gives you the most time and monetary freedom to fulfill the goals that you want in your life. That's my view. I don't know if that answered your question.
Yeah, no, I love hearing you talk through what, because I mean, you've got quite a unique story of you hear stories of guys who are at your age, yeah, I was a millionaire by the time I was 25, and then I lost. Normally, the way the story ends is then I lost it all. But in your
Yeah.
case, you've had the wisdom and the restraint to actually build a stable a stable wealth with it, which I think is quite unique. Yeah,
The biggest thing that you mentioned, the problem with authority, I think that brings me up is I was around a lot of poverty and a lot of wealth growing up. And the biggest fear I had as a child growing up, which I didn't know because my child were multiple divorcees, et cetera. And a lot of it was relationships and understanding the concept of I got to take care of myself. And the only way that I can take care of myself is delay gratification. Delay
yeah,
gratification. If I can delay gratification and I can take $1 today, and instead of creating a $1 at this very moment, create $10 possibly in the future, I'm going to make that choice. And it's very difficult. There's a lot of the right word is probably letting go and foreseeing things that you want at this exact moment to get you the peace and satisfaction in the future.
yeah. True story, and that's the story for any endeavor in life, not just becoming wealthy in life. So
Yeah.
it's
But
the
I want, I want to,
ability.
I want to, I want to jump in, Stephen, because I know you give your a lot of time to helping others and your faith and things of that nature. What fascinates me is lead generation for entrepreneurs and agents, because I think now more than ever, a lot of people are really struggling in their business. I know in the United States in particular, there are really no safe havens to put capital right now other than, US treasuries or just basic cash. What are you educating your agents on as far as lead generation to help get them out of that funk mentally that you touched upon earlier?
I think this comes back to the daily disciplines.
Mm,
There's a book by I'm sure you will know it. I think the guy's name is Jeff Olson. He wrote a book called The Slight Edge,
mm,
and I want to come back to that as a discussion with you around reading good books when you're young, and how that shaped you. But in that book, he made a point that in any endeavor in life, it's not dramatic things that make success. The thing that gives people success is their ability to maintain little daily disciplines or weekly
mm.
disciplines over an extended period of time. And these disciplines are easy to do, but they're also easy not to do. So let's take
So
getting
true.
fit as an example. It's easy for me to get on my mountain bike and go for a ride today. It's also easy for me to say, I'll do it tomorrow. And I don't wake up tomorrow weighing 5 kilograms heavier.
Right.
If I don't ride for a week, you're not going to see any difference. If I do ride for a week, you're not going to see any difference. But you multiply that over a year, and you're going to see a dramatic difference. And it's the same now when we come to business. I really try not to complicate matters. There are some basic disciplines on lead generation that we know works. We know work, and fundamental to that is building relationships and having as many personal conversations, property conversations with people on a daily basis as possible. And
Mm.
there's just some structures we build around that to make sure agents are making their calls, they're getting face to face, and then they're keeping in touch using technology. You're disciplined with those things, you'll generate leads. We know enough to know that the system works. It's the discipline that where it rises and falls.
So, when you see your most successful agents and students, what are some of their marketing movements and/or tactics that really work well as far as taking those leads and converting them into a lifelong relationships with these people? What are you seeing that works in your marketplace?
So we've got, as I say, an interesting marketplace in that you generally do not represent both. You generally do represent both buyer and seller in a transaction, which, by the way, I don't think is the greatest way of running a real estate business.
Mm,
I don't think it's best for the owner of the property, for the seller. If you can sell it quicker and at a better price by working with another agent, surely you'd want to do that. But we don't have a culture of sharing stock in South Africa. People want to hold on to their own stock. 90 odd percent of buyer leads come off one of two portals on our webs on the net here, and really there's no creativity around generating buyer leads. So, and I know this is true in other countries, but the money in real estate in South Africa is made in being able to get listings. It's whoever gets the listing is the winner.
Right.
And that's where building local relationships, being known, being the expert, being the ace in the hole, having a follow-up system, having a relationship building system, doing client events, having a newsletter out every week. It's all the old school stuff of keeping in touch, getting on the phone, having repeated contact. And we know the frequency. You know, you've got to speak to people every 6 weeks. Every 12 weeks, they get a handwritten note from you, and they're getting a weekly email from you. You just keep up those three disciplines, and you'll have endless relationships and an endless supply of leads.
Can you say that again for those that may have missed it? Those three things are very powerful.
Okay, so you want to speak. Now, these are people you know, what we call your advocates, the 100 people most likely to refer you or use you themselves. You want to speak to each of them every 6 weeks on the phone. If you can make it a face-to-face visit, so much the better. But at least on the phone every 6 weeks. After every second phone call, so every 12 weeks, you send them a handwritten note. So something about handwritten notes just deepen relationships, earn people's trust. They touch people emotionally. So old school, but it's good. And then once a week, you send out a newsletter. And that needs to be well written. It needs to be, the content needs to be good. But if you get it right, between the electronic communication and then that little cycle of personal contact, you will have an end stream of leads if you're disciplined with it.
I love that. I love that. No, that's really interesting. And so what are you hearing from your agents now that you help? What are some of their biggest issues that they're facing at this point in time in the marketplace?
Look, most agents, if I ask them, what's your biggest problem right now, they'd say no stock. I still think that is a big problem in South Africa. That will be interesting to monitor as what's happening in the States begins to reverberate through, if there's going to be kind of a shutdown and more properties come on the market. But we haven't quite reached that point yet. So again, it's still listings that the guys are struggling with.
And how has EXP changed the kind of the bedrock of, South Africa, and why was it the company that you wanted to be a part of out of curiosity? What were some of your reasonings?
Yeah, Michael, look, I promised I would never become a real estate agent. I'm very well known in the real estate industry in South Africa, particularly on my lead generation training side. I've trained tens of thousands of agents here. We coached hundreds of one-on-ones through our one-on-one program. So through the years, I've become well known and I was very well respected, had a great business. So I see EXP. I promised myself I'm never going to become an estate agent. And within the first 25 minutes of watching the video, I mean, the unthinkable began to happen. I began to get excited. Yeah. And I thought to myself, I've never seen a model like this in the industry that I know that can set me free. As a real estate trainer, you've got the same problem that estate agents have. It's a great business and you make a lot of money in a short amount of time because you do webinars and you sell digital products. But I was only as good as my last webinar. Next month, if I want to make more money, right, I got to find new content. I got to do another webinar. I got to do another speaking engagement. And it's tiring, man. It's, I wanted to move out from there, and I just couldn't find an exit plan in the training space. And so when I saw EXP, I thought to myself, this revenue sharing model, I know agents. I'm happy to get on the phone and say, hey, Mike, how's it going, man? There's something I want you to take a look at with me. I mean, I'm happy to make phone calls. And I just dived in 2 feet. I knew the moment I jumped in, my training business was dead because no company in their right mind is going to have me come and train their agents.
Oh, that's funny. Did you happen to look at the earnings call this morning or look at the numbers for the company? Have you been able to do that yet?
I saw a post on Workplace. I didn't read it in detail, but I see that there was a $1 billion $1 billion profit, or say like a 17% growth in profit or something, which, I mean, continue to shoot the lights out.
Well, there's a couple things that I'll talk about that always interested me because I think a lot of people, are wondering where does real estate go from here in the next couple of years. And looking at the stock, you can really start looking at a balance sheet and start realizing, okay, what's going on, right? So our revenue came in at 1.2 billion, which is great. I mean, that's be a lot of agents, 84,000 agents, something to that extent. Did a $60 million share buyback. The thing that I think worries a lot of people, and EXP is not alone. Believe me, this is a a global phenomenon, especially here in the United States. Is earnings per share is getting eroded, right? Because obviously we as agents aren't doing as many transactions in this type of environment because it's so difficult to get financing and put deals together. Um, and like you said earlier, I think that creates a lot of opportunities in the marketplace and makes buyers extremely excited and extremely aware of opportunities ahead. But do you feel in the next 12 to 18 months, there is going to be more pain in our industry? And for those willing to rise to the top, what are some things that they're doing and you're seeing are buffering themselves from that pain?
Look, I think EXP has come at the perfect time in South Africa.
Mm,
It's a new business here. We're 22 months old, and we've seen phenomenal growth here. We're already at about 650 agents in the country, which puts us in the top 10 brokerages in South Africa. The other 9 brokerages, either globally or if they're local franchises, have been in existence for more than 50 years, I think Michael Valdez said to
it's
me.
fantastic.
So we've got 9 companies that are 50 years old, and then we've got EXP that was 18 when we hit the top 10. So, I mean, we're breaking every record in South Africa. And I think one of the exciting things about it is I've got agents in my group who are productive agents. They're good with their relationships. They're well known in their area. They're the ace in the hole agents. They're still getting good deals, but they're starting to build up a revenue share, a second income stream for themselves. And I think that's going to become increasingly important for agents as things do slow down, is to find other sources of income,
Hmm.
which is why agents really should be, investing in property themselves. I mean, and we've always told agents that you need to be saving a percentage of what you make. Don't spend it all, and you need to be snapping up the good deals that you see. How many agents have listened to that advice? I doubt many, but I think
Isn't
that the
that the
pain,
truth? Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
What if you were to? I'm sure you have a lot of agents or people that see your stature in South Africa and in Cape Town and probably call you or text you and ask you for advice. What pieces of advice would you give an agent just starting out, or maybe an agent that's had difficulty in their businesses and maybe flatlining and stalling? What are some things that they can do today after listening to us speak that may put an adrenaline shot into their business, so to speak?
Yeah, um, I want to quote a guy called Fred Wilson. He was an interesting guy that I just had this fortuitous discussion with in Jesse Zagorski's suite. I had a meeting with Jesse. He wanted to meet him, and Jesse introduced me to this guy in the suite. And he's a kind of a unique guy. He holds the record of the streak. So he sold a home once a week for 30 years. And he
Mm,
says, I have a particular, I mean, he's a bit of a unique individual, but he said, I've got a particular thing that I teach agents to do. I don't believe in database marketing. I don't believe in referral marketing. I don't believe in social media. So all the stuff that we tell agents to do. So I don't believe in any of it. I believe in being able to get business now. So
mm,
I said, well, what do you mean by that? He says, I have and teach a particular skill, and it involves being able to leave this hotel room to go to a coffee shop down on the strip. Suddenly, I will have a piece of business. I'll have opportunity. He says you've just got to know how to speak to people. So this was an intriguing claim. So as I've come back, I've been in touch with Fred. He's going to do some training with my team here. I've been watching some stuff on YouTube, and basically what he does is he has a way of getting into petty conversations with people. He just knows how to get into lots of
mm.
conversations with people in public places, and then turn those conversations to people's property needs. Do you own property? What do you
Mm,
see about property? Anything that I can help you with, however he does it. But I just the principle behind that is a powerful one. The more property
mm,
conversations you have with people, the more you're going to get leads. I mean, if we have agents who are struggling, the first thing we will get them to do is make a list of the 100 people on the planet that they've got the closest relationship with and just get on the phone and just say, hey, I've joined a company called EXP, or we give them a script. Hey, I recently made a decision to build my business more proactively by referral, and I'm trying to get clear at the moment on who it is that would actually be happy to refer me. I just wanted to ask you if you had a friend or a family member who was buying or selling, maybe you were, am I the agent you'd refer them to? Just
mm.
get into a property conversation with as many people as you can. And we've done that with lots of people through the years in our coaching program. And very commonly, once they've got through those 100 phone calls, agents would come back so excited, eyes as big as dinner plates, saying, I picked up 5 new listings, 7 new buyers, I made 3 new sales from this. It's not rocket science. Get into as many personal conversations as possible. And leads come out of conversations. That's actually the
Mm.
bottom line.
I like that. Leads come out of conversations. I like that. No, you're right. In a lot of ways, there was a couple things that you said that really resonated with me. I think any opportunity I've ever had in my life has had to have been from a basic conversation of a stranger. Like take us, for instance, right? We're in the VIP line waiting for a cup of coffee and we strike up a conversation and boom, we have this conversation because of it, right? So the concept of having a conversation, interacting with someone genuinely, authentically caring about what it is that they find important. And then also, like you said, how do you establish property conversations and or commonality to, better someone else? I call it SCC. So my acronym is the first thing you have to do is be able to tell a story, right? If you can't interact with someone on a positive level and an uplifting level, they're not going to take you seriously. Number two is we have to find commonality, right? Which stands for the first C. What do we have in common? Oh, wow, you're a trainer, you're a lead gen guy, you're a great human being that gives back to the community. You live halfway around the world. These are fascinating things that I would love to learn about, right? And last but not least, that last C is conversion. And that conversion for an agent is, oh, I have a listing, right? I have a buyer. Or that conversion in a great conversation is we both win having spent this time with one another, learning from one another, and at least getting one nugget of opportunity from both. And that to me is the biggest proponent that most people miss out on is they don't realize there's so much gold in these conversations with people we don't get to talk to on a daily basis. And if only they listened and implemented some of the things that you talked about today, I think a lot of people would be very well off.
Yeah, I think, Michael, that's one of the things I've come to respect most about you. Is I've been listening to some of the things that you've done. Is that you are a man who genuinely values relationships and you value conversation. You love getting
Mm.
together with people and just talking, having conversations, because you've learned that so much good unscripted, unplanned opportunities, personal edification, insights, whatever, just come from relationships. And we spend so much time, in our phones, on our computers, in our email, in the stress that I don't think we give enough time to just having human conversations with people. And as you say, there is a business technique to it, get around to talking about property. But man, life is so rich when you take
Yeah.
an interest in others and you have conversations, isn't it?
I couldn't agree more, and that's what life is about, is interacting with people that you have yet to meet and that have something and that can teach you about something that you knew nothing about. And if you can, tell us briefly about some of the things that you're doing for the community and some of the things that you've been a part of for the last 35 years with your faith.
Yeah, so I was in the ministry for about 7 years. I did a master's through a seminary in the States, actually, which was an unbelievable experience. I loved every minute of it. Very grateful to your nation education it gave me. And ran a Bible college at the time. Was very involved with pastoral stuff, so teaching a lot of kind of university age students and getting involved in their lives, and countless people who I could pray with or who I could visit, or Um, wow, what a rewarding thing to do. It doesn't pay very well. It's
Yeah.
very
But it
rewarding.
fills the soul with full payment, right?
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, so phenomenal, and the teaching aspect. I'm I'm bent towards packing information and delivering it, and just had a wonderful time doing that. But am perfectly confident that I'm still on the journey where I need to be. There is a unique opportunity in business to be able to touch a lot of people's lives that you can't doing, in my case, in a kind of church environment. You get to build relationships with all kinds of people. You get to hear of needs. You get to speak a word of encouragement. So, I mean, that's the stuff that when you build a big revenue share team, you get to do every day that you don't expect will happen. You kind of think about the money and the numbers and the turnover and the rev share, but actually what happens is you begin to make incredible friends as you build a business like EXP, and that's the stuff that gives great richness in life.
I agree. I couldn't agree more. One of the questions I always ask guests is, what is a piece of advice that you could tell to the audience that really affected you in a positive way and helped change your life? And who is it from?
That's a difficult question, Mark. It's a very difficult question. Because my massive transformation was not through any individual who was kind of mentoring me or gave me advice or took me aside. I had an encounter. With the Lord, and it
Mm,
profoundly changed me overnight. No longer was it a kind of like intellectual thing of maybe there's something out there. It was like I met him. I had a profound encounter with the living God, and it changed me profoundly. And everything that's happened over the last 25 years of my life has just been following him, trusting his guidance every day, and even the EXP business now is the full flowering of so much that of the various moves on the chessboard that have been happening over these last 25 years. I kind of feel like I'm in the passenger seat of someone who really knows what he's doing and is taking me somewhere exciting. So, yeah,
mm.
if I'm going to give glory to anyone, it's going to be to the Lord for what He's done. And I'm not trying to push that on anybody, but that's my story. That's
Yeah, yeah. What about a quote? If there was a quote you could leave us with, what's a quote that really resonates with you?
um, yeah. There's a number of the proverbs actually that speak to me, but I got one on my wall. You can't see it, and I'm going to read it to you because this thing really gives me pause to reflect on a daily basis, and I'll tell you why. This is from Ecclesiastes, actually. Dead flies putrefy the perfumer's ointment and cause it to give off a foul odor. So, in the same way, does a little folly to one respected for wisdom and honor. A little folly. And
Mm,
I guess, like a lot of guys, I am prone to a little folly. I'm prone to a little jocularity or silly humor, and I need to watch that thing in myself continually on a daily basis because it's a lot of it is not fitting. A lot of it is actually just immaturity. It's childishness, and I need to cut it out of my life. Because if you want to be a leader, if you want to be respected, if you want to influence people positively, you cannot allow the loose moments of humor to ruin so much of what you've in the respective people. So, I don't know if that speaks to anybody that watches this, but that has been a particular issue that
mm.
I've needed to watch. Yeah.
No, it's a very good quote. I mean, that makes a lot of sense and that resonates. You had a question for me in regards to books. Is that correct before we end?
Yeah, I actually got two questions for you, and I'd love to hear your thinking on this. Some of the most profound kind of steps forward in my life have been through reading a book. And young
Mm,
guys getting into their kind of entrepreneurial journey. I've got a son 60. I think he's probably going to take the same sort of entrepreneurial path, and I would love him to commit to reading and reading the right stuff. But I think this generation reading books is really not high on their priority. I don't think they kind of value the power of a good book. So I actually wanted to ask you, were there any books that you read in those formative years that really made a big impact on you?
One of the best business books I ever read was Snowball by Alice Schroeder. Is the authorized autobiography or biography, I should say, of Warren Buffett. It's a long book, but it really details his mindset as a child all the way up to his current financial success. And it really showcases, again, his delayed gratification and his thought process of every movement that he made. Another great book is I forgot the author, Richest Man in Babylon. That's another great book.
Og Mandino, yeah.
Yeah. Have you read that one?
Yeah. Og Mandino, yeah, good one.
There's boy, it's funny because there are so many books that come to my mind that gave me different elements to my thought process. The Go Giver is another great book. I don't know if you've ever read that one. I have to remember who the
I've heard
author
of it.
is on that one. But I think the biggest thing is what I recommend to all age of people. You have to become a sponge. Become a sponge of knowledge, of conversation, of feeling, and go in the direction of your dreams. And so many people, I think, give up on their childhood dreams. They give up on the manifestations of what they believed as a youth. And I highly encourage people not to do that. There's a reason you dreamt of a certain meal, of a certain wife or husband, of a certain family life, of a certain financial success, of a certain material item. There's a reason you walk into a room with certain people and you feel good energy, right? Your body is telling you move in the direction of your childhood dreams, of the things that you promised to yourself. And anything that gets you closer to that feeling or to that realization, I highly encourage people to take. And those that give you that feeling of, oh, this is not right, I have a guttural, instinctual feeling of this is wrong, go in the opposite direction. And I think that served me well and a lot of people that I care about.
Michael, then I'd love to hear you. I know we're probably running out of time, but you're obviously a highly educated, highly intelligent, achieved young man. You're in your early 30s. As you look towards, let's say, your late 40s, the next sort of 15 to 20 years, what is driving you? What drives you now? What is your vision for the sort of medium term of your life?
I think the biggest thing that always drove me at a young age, for better or for worse, was fear. I was always a very cautious person. I never put myself into a situation where I could fail. I always wanted to be the best, and I failed many ways along the way. And I failed, a lot of aspects of my personal life. But I think every failure is just a pit stop towards success. And you have to realize, no matter the doldrums and the darkness of people's lives, whether it be loss, death, financial ruin, that's not the end of the story. Many people feel that it is. It's just the beginning. It's just part of the chapter of your book, right? And so I think in many ways, my future and what drives me the most and why we're here today. And again, thank you so much for taking the time. Is learning, absorbing knowledge, helping share that knowledge with a multitude of people, and in maybe one or two ways, changing the trajectory of their lives with the knowledge that we have learned from others. To me, I think that's one of the biggest callings. And if you can impact someone's life better and the best way that you know how, you're doing the right thing on this planet. So that's kind of my intention.
Yeah. Well, Godspeed to you, and
What
thank
about
you for
you?
having me on today. Yeah, very similar. Right now, I've got my head down, rebuilding. We come out of the ministry, and now we're kind of in that rebuilding phase, going very well. But I see a few more years of just one-eyed focus on building the business. There's a couple of other opportunities sort of pitching up alongside of it, which I think we're going to take. So I'm enjoying the entrepreneurial space. My kids are just about to kind of get out of the house, so I've got a bit more freedom from a time perspective. So I really feel like I'm in a building phase, and then maybe in sort of 5 or 10 years time, I'd like to start traveling more and speaking more and doing what you're talking about, just trying to make an impact and
Oh,
help
I love that. Well,
other,
in any
other
way I can
people.
help you, let me know. I'd love to share. I'd love to share, your knowledge, and I think a lot of people around the world obviously need it. They need kind people like yourself that also has the ability to lead gen in their life, because that's what life is. Lead generation, whether it be in relationships or, the financial aptitude or whatever. Stephen, thank you so much for taking time. What's the best way that they can follow you or ask you questions if they'd like to do so?
Yeah, so you can find me on YouTube. YouTube's probably my favorite channel. Just do a search for Stephen Johnstone, my name. They'll find me there. And yeah, hit me up on a like or a subscribe or whatever you got for me, and it would be great. You can direct message me there or on Instagram. Instagram, I'm S Johnston is the handle. And yeah, it'd be great to connect with anyone who wants to. So thank you, and thanks again for having me, Michael. I really do appreciate it, man.
And thank you, Stephen, and have a wonderful evening. I know it's late over there, so thanks for taking the time away from your family, and let's do this again. I really enjoyed this conversation, and much success and health to you and your family.
All right, thank you, Michael. You too. Cheers, man.
Take care.